So there was this rumor slash reported story leak going around recently about the fact that Superman Legacy might have something to do with, like, a crisis in the Middle East that Superman helps solve, and then that brings him onto the world stage and makes him, like, known to the world of the DCU. And not just to mention the fact that that A is a very sensitive subject matter in the world that we're living in today, but also, it looks like whoever was spreading these rumors didn't have their sources right, because James Gunn has come out and debunked that rumor. So John, I wanted to kind of get your insight into more of what this story leak, supposed story leak, was, and what did James Gunn have to say about it.
So, from my knowledge of it, it was essentially that this, as we all know, it's going to be a year two Superman where he kind of has a tiny bit of experience, but not a ton, isn't well known to the world yet. That's all known. And he's like trying to, get in touch with more of his Kryptonian roots and all of that. But the story leak, alleged story leak, the rumor was that the big reveal of Superman to the world, because he's kind of only known in Metropolis. People don't know if he exists or not, like that kind of thing. The big reveal was that there was going to be this terrorist attack in the Middle East, and that where is and he's like, I can't stand by any longer. I have to make myself known, and he makes himself known and stops whatever's going on, and he comes into conflict with the authority, as well as a proto Justice League Terrifics kind of thing with Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and the Guy Gardner Green Lantern. So he was going to come into conflict with all these different heroes, and that was essentially going to be the movie, like him like putting his foot down and doing all of this. And I personally, I was not a big fan of that. It just seemed a little bit too on the nose politically. I don't mind political stuff in my comic book stories. It's as long as it's done well, it's done subtly. And I feel like that would have been too on the nose. So eventually, James Gunn did say on Threads that it is not going to be about that at all. Whether that is because it was never going to be a thing or due to the rising tensions in Israel and Palestine right now, uh, he decided to steer away from that. Whatever the case is, I'm glad that it is debunked, because it just feels a little bit too forceful in terms of that aspect. And it seems like James Gunn is going more towards, the more hopeful, um, you know, stricken Superman, and going more towards that. And so I feel like that would have gone too far against with what he's doing. So I do still believe that the main crux of the storyline, my theory is that Superman is going to be against the authority. Now, the authority are not villains. I know a lot of people say I know a lot of the articles said that Defaria as the engineer is the villain, but she's not really a
Yeah,
villain. They're an anti-hero group,
yeah.
but they would be the antagonist, because they have Superman and them have very different ways of dealing with justice. So I think
Right.
they're going to come head to head in Superman Legacy, with Superman's dealing of justice and their dealing of justice being the main crux of the film. So I think it's gonna lean towards that, but less from a worldly view and more towards a smaller character driven view. So that's essentially what that was, and I'm glad that we're steering away from that, because it would have been a huge can of worms, even with or without the political stuff in the Middle East going on right now.
Yeah, and honestly, if you want to make that kind of a point, you don't have to base it on, like, something that, like, a real place.
Right.
Like, for example, in Black Adam, like, the country the country that Black Adam comes from is a fictional country, Kondak. Like, like, you might imagine, oh, that's basically Egypt or Morocco, but without, like, calling it that. Or in Top Gun, like, like, the enemy is this unknown country, like it's an amalgamation of, like, maybe several different countries in real life, but they don't really ever point out what that is. Or even in, Captain America Civil War, like when that whole at the UN meeting, like this explosion happens and everything else that follows, they didn't really go by the comic book version of the story, which
Hmm.
was a lot more like straddling the line of like, should this be being put out in a mainstream like superhero film? And so I think adaptation is a big thing that they should be doing. And I think Superman Legacy is a movie. James Gunn is a filmmaker. He knows that you can't really, even before everything that's going on in the world today, really all of that started going happening. I think he would have probably looked at the story and said, well, if I'm trying to make something that is a bit more timeless, that's gonna hold water and stand the test of time, you don't want to tie it into something that is so of here and now in the moment kind of a situation. And like I said, you can definitely make that point of, here's a moral and ethical conundrum. How does Superman deal with it? How does the authority deal with it? And kind of establishing that contrast. You can absolutely do that without making it based on a conflict in the Middle East. So yeah, I'm glad James Gunn debunked it, and I'm excited to see what the actual story is. We've been getting some good fan theories in our comments, so guys, keep those fan theories coming in. I saw like this one fan theory which was kind of talking about how they might lean into the engineer not initially being part of the authority and being just more of an antagonistic character compared to the Superman and his moral and ethics code. And then through the events of this movie, they were kind of probably have the engineer join the authority while Superman working against them to maybe like was trying to take two very different approaches to solving the same problem, almost like a Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King Jr. sort of a way.
Right.
And I think that would be a fantastic like means to do that. So guys, let us know in the comments, what you think about this. Did you believe the rumor? Do you believe what James Gunn has said here? And if so, then what do you think might be the story of Superman Legacy? We still have a long time to go before this movie comes out, but until then, all we can do is either wait for James Gunn to give us more details, or maybe we can come up with a few fan theories of our own. Who knows? Maybe some of us will get close, or we might not get close at all. But do let us know in the comments below what you think, and of course, like and subscribe for more content like this.